Hello, everyone. How is it going? This is Mike from Comic Book Fans and Luke from Casual Experts, as always. But we are joined today by our friend Alessandro, aka Hawk of Krypton. Be sure to follow him on Instagram. He has like really great content on Instagram, especially DC and Snyder Cut related. So be sure to check him out. Link in the description. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. Just celebrating my success.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Yeah, dude, man, it's been a long time coming. I think most people know at this point kind of the journey of the Snyder Cut. But it is really crazy to think about how we went from, whatever the heck hackney job we got in 2017 to this, what, it's been like 4 years later now. Pretty crazy. Yeah, I guess what I wanted to do here, this is sort of like a spoiler review / spoiler talk thing. So obviously spoilers, no, anybody watching. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to split this up into just a few things, like our initial thoughts of the movie. Was it what we expected, and then the talk about the plot and the story, and then like the dialogue, the characters, special effects, action scenes, stuff like that. Then talk about the score a little bit, soundtrack, and then like kind of what's coming up next, what we want to see in the DC coming forward, and then maybe tackle some, I guess, criticisms this film has received thus far. But yeah, I'm just gonna introduce stuff, and then we can all just give our thoughts. So I guess first things first. What are your guys' like initial thoughts? I guess starting with Alessandro, what were your like initial thoughts, like take on the movie?
Well, I honestly thought it was great,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing under nearly every aspect I could think of. I was honestly in awe during the whole movie.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like 4 hours at all. It was honestly just this movie is just so immense, just such an experience to witness, both for the movie itself and for the journey behind it. Because
Sure.
it's really unique thing surrounding this movie. Like usually films just come out and you wait for them. You don't fight for them to come out. So this was kind of a personal thing to witness, besides its merits as a movie by itself. And I honestly thought it was worth the wait. Absolutely worth it. And I we're obviously gonna delve later into why I think what I think. But for now,
Right.
I think it's just amazing, and I couldn't be happier.
Awesome. All right. What about you, Luke? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. About last year, you might probably familiar with it. A lot of people were upset because Martin Scorsese said that,
Oh yeah.
specifically referring to the MCU, that these kind of movies weren't cinema. But the day this movie came out, I believe it was Roger Ebert. If you're not familiar with him, he's a very sophisticated film critic, and he said that normally he would agree with what Scorsese said, but in this case, he thought this movie was very cinema, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
And I would definitely agree with him. Like, I like the MCU, but I think this is a lot like on a whole nother level, I think.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing that we live in a timeline where Martin Scorsese approves of the Snyder Cut.
yeah, that's a good
Right.
point. No, for sure, I totally agree. Like, yeah, I agree with both of you. Like, I ever since I knew what was going on with Justice League and all that, like I really wanted the Snyder Cut to come out, and like for a while I just kind of figured like all we're really gonna get is Snyder going on Vero and telling us like his plan, and I was like I would love to see it, but I don't think it's ever gonna happen. But then just like people kept myself included, people just kept talking about it and talking about how they want to see it, and then things started building more and more, and then on like the 2-year anniversary, when everybody started posting stuff, even like some of the actors like Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa and stuff, I was like, are things gonna happen here? And then for like pretty much like the 6 months or longer, 7 months, 8 months after that, I was really thinking like something's probably brewing. And then obviously we finally got it. It's just been crazy. For me, it was definitely worth the wait. I think for sure it goes a little bit further than just the merits of the film itself. It definitely is like sort of a connection to it, because obviously all the fans, including myself, have been fighting for this. But
Right.
I think overall, like you said, Luke, it is very much like a cinematic experience. It's not just like another chapter in like a wider like MCU like
Right.
kind of thing, which there's nothing wrong with that inherently.
Yeah.
But this is such a different animal, and I really like that. I like that. That's the thing about Zack Snyder, is he was really trying to do something unique with DC,
Right.
and a lot of people didn't like it, but I for one love it, and I'm glad we finally got this. And yeah, it was epic. So yeah, great. So I guess moving on to the plot, the story, I think overall it was so much more complex than what we got in 2017. I don't know why they felt the need to dumb everything down. Like a lot of it was like they cut a lot of the story for the characters, but then they just cut the wider, like grander scale of things with like Darkseid behind everything and all that. And they cut, like they made Superman's resurrection a lot, like just they dumbed it down. Like in this, they were talking about how they even like were using, like, they were basic, but they were using scientific terms and talking in things like somewhat scientifically, talking about how the change engine changes things on like molecular level, stuff like that. Whereas in the other one, it was basically just Batman saying like, this is science we don't understand, it's pretty cool.
We know we can't bring him back, but this is science beyond our limits. And that's what science is for, to do what's never been done, to make life better.
Or to end it.
And it's like, what? Just the things like that, I think they just really did the movie a disservice in the 2017 one. What do you guys think about that, about the story and the plot?
I thought the plot was really well written. It balanced really well between introducing the new characters, dealing with Superman's death, and the forces of Apocalypse, Steppenwolf's attack, Darkseid, the whole thing. I thought everything was balanced really well, and it made for such a compelling story that, again, as I said, it didn't really feel like 4 hours. I was just so immersed in the story, what was happening. Every time we were with the characters, we explored their part of their world, and nothing felt like it was there for too long or too little. And like the pacing, again, it's the third time I mention it, I know, but the pacing was so well done that I really just I couldn't not be captured by it all when it happened. Like by itself, it's really large. It's about this world-ending threat, the force of Apocalypse, Steppenwolf, but it feels so personal because we explore the struggles of each character, and it's both immense but at the same time intimate. And like it's a juxtaposition I don't think I've ever seen in a superhero movie before. Because very often it's just, let's save the world. And very rarely it's both, let's save the world while we deal with personal struggles. And I think that's just one of the many factors that contributed to the film's overall plot. I thought it was, again, really well done. And there were, even though I supported this film for years, there were still some things I didn't see coming. And I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw them. And I was really satisfied with the plot.
Sure.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said. I think we'll get into this a little bit later with the characters, but it's very difficult for a movie this long to keep you captivated the entire time. But with the characters and the actors, and obviously the direction by Zack Snyder, it really just keeps you engrossed, I guess is the right word, in the entire time, and you're invested for the whole thing, and that takes a lot of skill, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess I want to talk about the dialogue a little bit, not a whole lot, just because I know some people have said like it wasn't great, and like I thought it was fine. There may be a couple moments where I was like, but like it didn't take me out of the movie, let's be honest, pretty much every movie has cringy dialogue at some point in it, So it's like I didn't have a huge problem. There were like maybe a few lines where I was like, that's a little bit forced or something, but nothing like, wow, this is stupid,
Well, I think the dialogue worked fine by itself. I mean, it's not as complex as Man of Steel or Batman v Superman.
Sure.
But, it does what it's supposed to do, which I think every film, it's like the minimum that it should do. And I currently can't think of a line that really struck with me because, not because the dialogue was memorable. Again, it was good. It did what it's supposed to do, but it was super complex. Like I feel like that's technically a good thing because the film by itself, it's kind of straightforward. I mean, it's not too overly complex. There are too many things going on, which was a criticism with Batman v Superman. I didn't have a problem with it. But they kept things relatively simple, both for Snyder fans and for the wider audience. And I think that contributed to the positive reviews it's still having, which honestly is so good to see a Snyder DC film receiving so many great reviews. And I don't have to defend every aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's really good. And yeah, the dialogue, I think it was fine. And again, it wasn't anything groundbreaking, which I guess it's a bummer, but I think it was good.
Yeah, it's it wasn't. There's nothing like profound about the way that the lines are written or delivered, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's easy to follow. It's not too simple or too complex, and I didn't really have an issue with it.
Yeah. What I did like about the dialogue, I think that stood out was, I think, like, the interaction and banter between the characters was really good. It didn't feel, for the most part, it didn't really feel forced. It felt like they were actually like people just interacting. They didn't feel like they were trying to joke every 5 seconds, where you see it in a lot of other stuff, and which we obviously saw in the 2017 version. So yeah, I think we've talked about the dialogue. Yeah, so the characters. This is probably one of the most important things about this movie, because we kind of got introduced to these characters in 2017, but it felt so rushed. The nice thing about like stuff like the MCU is they have a lot of movies to build up, and introduce these characters. So then when you do like an ensemble movie, you really don't have to develop these characters at all. They just sort of interact with, react to what's going on. But with this, they really had to flesh out not both, but all three, like Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg, plus the side characters. And I think this movie really did that well, which I think was probably, what contributed so much to the long runtime. Right. But you really felt the motivations of each character, their personal attitudes and personalities, and just everything about them was very much more understandable, and you really felt more attached to the characters by the end of the movie, and really wanted to see, more of them.
I absolutely 100% agree. As I said, the character journeys in this film was like probably his strongest attribute, because like it was done so well. Each character had their own. I saw a review that said that every time we go to a new character, it's like we're experiencing their own movie. Like it's a movie within a movie. Like I really agree with it, because when we were with Barry, I feel like I was watching the Flash movie, and when we went to Atlantis, we were with Arthur, and then there's Walker, and like each character felt like they belong in a bigger world, which is true, because the Justice League was meant to kickstart each new solo movie, like Batman, Deathstroke, Flash solo movie, Aquaman. Well, this was supposed to come out before Aquaman, but Aquaman already came out, so Like I think something this film did surprisingly well was also the villains. Like Steppenwolf, Dad, and Darkseid. They were their own characters. They didn't exist just to be evil, like the 2017 version. Like they had their own character arc too. They had their own personalities. Each character had their own background and reason to be. And I think the one time really helped with that, because like 2 hours aren't enough to explore these characters and make them not really complex, but have layers, have depth. A good character has to have depth. Otherwise, they're just one note that exists just to carry the plot along. And personally, I think that's the worst thing you could do with a character. And like, I would love to delve into each individual character and why I think they work. But this video would then last more than the movie.
Yeah, sure.
So let me just say, I absolutely love these characters, and the Cyborg is an absolute standout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, like you said, each character kind of has their own movie going on, which is why this movie's so long. But you really understand, like, Barry and Cyborg, they both have their struggle with their family, and Wonder Woman's trying to kind of figure out what's going on. She's with the Arrow and the Amazonians, and then Batman is trying to pretty much not necessarily undo, but he's trying to amend what he did in BVS.
Right.
And you can definitely feel, like, even what you said, even with Darkseid, you understand his motivation. Like, he was kicked out of Apocalypse and he's trying to make it up. No, not Darkseid, Steppenwolf, my bad. He's trying to make it up with Darkseid by conquering these different planets and stuff. But yeah, all the characters are really well written, really well acted. The only one that I had an issue with was Martian Manhunter. He only showed up a couple of times, and I didn't fully understand his deal. But all the other characters were really well acted and written and all that.
Yeah, I agree with the Martian Manhunter thing. It was basically just kind of like an Easter egg. Like I think in the original, it was just supposed to be an Easter egg, like when he was standing outside Lois's apartment. But then with the reshoots at the end, they added another scene.
Yeah.
Apparently, Zack Snyder wanted to use Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, but the studio wouldn't let him because apparently they've got some grand and glorious plans. I don't know. So he was like, okay, well, can I shoot a Martian Manhunter scene? They're like, yeah, all right. So I think it was kind of like those things you see at like the end of Marvel movies where it's like, the end of Iron Man, Nick Fury's like, oh, hey, SHIELD and stuff, So, yeah. But so, yeah, characters, really great. I want to talk about the special effects and the action scenes a little bit. So, yeah, the special effects, I think overall were like fantastic. There were a couple times I felt things seemed a little unfinished or something. Right. Like they didn't look terrible. It wasn't like CW level or anything, but it was still like a little bit shaky. Like it didn't look as realistic as the rest of the graphics. But I think all the action scenes were freaking awesome. Like there was even action scenes from the other 2017 cut that somehow they made look stupid, or at least like in comparison to this, they look so bad. Like when you get to see the full action sequence, you're like, wow, this is so much cooler. And even like the designs of the characters, like Steppenwolf's design, it looks so much better. And I really like the Steppenwolf design. I like the way his armor moved and seemed like it was living and stuff. Yeah. And obviously, like I really liked Darkseid's design, and there was a lot of detail. Like I don't think they used the same motion capture stuff that you see in a lot of like Marvel and stuff, but it's still like the detail was like really, really, really good in most of the scenes.
Well, yeah, I think that for like 90% of the movie, the special effects are great.
Yeah.
Especially on Steppenwolf's armor and the People of Apocalypse in general. Like, the Flash and the Speed Force, that was exceptional.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, like, but I have to say, special effects is where I have my very few problems with the film. Because, like, some effects didn't look finished, which I totally understand. This film has a very unique production history, let's say. And especially the last scene in the Nightmare Future with Cyborg and Mera and Joker and so forth, that shot last year. So the special effects, they weren't really the best of the best, but I can understand what was supposed to be what. And like that's why Cyborg didn't look super great either. And like in some scenes, I feel like they had to use recycled footage, like for example, in the last scene where Nightmare Superman drops in front of the surviving members of the League, but not really League, but the surviving members of the Nightmare timeline. They had to recycle the shot from BVS where Superman ends in Africa, and like I've seen BVS so many times, I instantly recognized that. But at the same time, I was like, I guess Cavill was busy filming The Witcher. I guess that's why, I guess. And yeah, so I let that slide, let's say. But as a film itself, it's kind of a bummer. But at the same time, I can understand it. It's just that, since Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, they were allowed to be finished. They didn't have this problem, but Justice League did. But there were so many great VFX shots that less just forgivable.
Right. So normally, like, I'm the person that's always complaining about special effects and action scenes in superhero movies, but specifically the action in this movie was really not only easy to follow, which isn't always the case, but it was really well done too, and so I enjoyed it. Like you guys said, the special effects were mostly good. They only had 1 year and $70 million to complete it all, so not all of it was great, but it was obviously better than some of the TV stuff that we see.
Yeah. I think the special effects for most of the main story, like most of the stuff that we know was like completed before all this happened, looked great. Like the final battle, I didn't think there was anything really like that. Yeah. I think it all looked badass as hell, except for like there was like that one scene where they like all kind of were together in one shot, kind of like in an Avengers-esque shot, and that one looked cool, but it did look kind of a little bit unfinished.
It looked a bit weird. I mean,
yeah,
it didn't fully finish. I get it was cool, of course. Yeah.
Right, yeah. That was one shot that I remember was like, yeah, and then, also like Flash at the end in the nightmare scene, you could tell his face looked kind of CGI'd, but apparently it was because they stinking like zoomed in Ezra Miller. He did his scene over Zoom. and then they basically like CGI'd his face onto. So I don't know how the heck they actually did that, but like
I have no idea either. I'm still so confused about that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But considering he did it over Zoom, it's like, you know, it looks pretty good. But yeah, I agree with you, Luke. The action was very cool and it was easy to follow, but it was also like sometimes it was brutal as hell. You're like, dang, that's cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the score and soundtrack. So speaking of soundtrack, I think they made some weird choices with the soundtrack. In this, they play a lot of like weird, like very, well, not weird necessarily, but it's like very like low key songs I've never heard before, almost like kind of indie songs. Like they played it during Flash's whole, you know, scene where he saves Iris, and then that Aquaman scene, and like a couple other scenes that I thought those choices were like, I wouldn't say bad, but they were just kind of weird.
Right.
But the stinking score itself was freaking awesome. Junkie XL just like went crazy, and I loved how he incorporated Superman's theme from from Man of Steel. He did that a couple times, and Wonder Woman's scenes sounded more badass than ever. You know, so all that was just very like, I didn't hate Danny Elfman's score, but this is like just some of the scenes that were the same between 2017 and the Snyder Cut were just so much more intense because of Junkie XL's score, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I agree with you, especially on the part about the soundtrack. Like, I'm not necessarily bad, but I was like, why did they pick this exactly? I think that when Aquaman was returning to the sea and he was taking off his shirt, I think the song was there was the word kingdom somewhere. So like they put the song because he's the king of Atlantis, but at the same time I was like, why? Okay. It was very weird, but at the same time the score was so exceptional that I think he made up for it. Despite the Steel team or the Woman team or the Speed Force team that chilled down my spine the whole time. And like I have one critique of the score though. Like Wonder Woman's new team, the one that goes like with Dan to the Amazon chants, like the first time it was cool, but I feel like they played it every single time Diana was on screen.
That's fair. It was a little overused.
I mean, it was really cool at first, but I don't like the criticism that say, "Oh, this was too much," because Who Gets Suicide was too much. But for once, I think that this was too much.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the score I really, really enjoyed. I think that there was even some parts that were almost like metal, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, I absolutely love, I don't know who did the music for Wonder Woman, but I love her theme on the electric cello. It was very, very cool. I get chills every time I hear it.
Yeah, I know Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL wrote it together for Batman v Superman, and then they've used it ever since in varying degrees.
Yeah, but that theme was really, really cool. But yeah, like you mentioned, there's that really weird yodeling that keeps coming back. And I'm not sure if it was the score or the soundtrack, but it was really, really bizarre. But going to the soundtrack, with most of Zack Snyder's movies, he has a lot of needle drops, which is to say music that existed beforehand. He likes to put a lot of those in his movies for stylistic purposes. And this movie is no exception, but there are some parts where that doesn't really work, at least for me. But yeah, the score is really good, I think.
I'm pretty sure, from what I know, I think Junkie XL did most of the score like himself at his home in his own studio. So I'm pretty sure he did a lot of stuff like on his computer, but I'm pretty sure he used his own like electric guitar to actually play some of this. At least. So that's really cool. I thought that was very cool.
When Superman was fighting Steppenwolf, like this version of the Man of Steel team played, I was like, oh, thank God there's not like the Danny Elfman version where like they just used the nostalgic version of the old Superman. I was like, no, the Superman has his own theme away.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. I think that's pretty much it for the score. I did forget to mention a couple things earlier. I did forget to mention Superman's black suit, which like we knew was coming for a while, but just cool. It was so cool to actually see it finally, because I know like it's in the comics, obviously he comes back with that black suit, and it's just sort of a staple of Superman when he comes back, from the grave. And I think it was a really good decision to do that. And I think it's stupid that Warner Brothers tried to stop him, but I also think it's incredibly clever that he and the special effects team made a suit where they could go back and make it the black suit with with special effects.
One thing I will point out that was in the comics when he came back, he had the black suit, but he also had a mullet.
Right.
And so I'm like, I wouldn't mind Henry Cavill in a mullet, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, apparently, Zack Snyder did an interview with the YouTuber Tyrone Magnus, which, by the way, very good YouTuber. But he did an interview with Tyrone, and Tyrone did ask him, like, did you ever try to, was it ever in your plans to do the mullet? And Zack said, like, I kind of wanted to do the mullet, and I threw it out there, I mentioned it, but everybody kind of killed it pretty quickly. But apparently, it was in Zack Snyder's original idea, but. I think it would be cool, kind of a cool callback. At the same time, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense given like his body was dead, and like you don't really grow hair when you're dead. So like I think it would have been like a fun Easter egg, but it also wouldn't have made
absolutely
logical sense. Right. Like in the comics, it made more sense because he was healing in like a pod for like several months.
Right.
But yeah, I guess the last thing to talk about is kind of the whole nightmare thing, like the end scene and like what's gonna come next. Hopefully, I know. I was super looking forward to seeing more nightmare scene stuff, because I know in the, obviously in Batman v Superman, there was that really cool nightmare sequence and nobody knew what the hell it was except for like diehard fans or people who listened to what Snyder was planning on doing. So it was cool, not only in the movie, we did finally get to hear Bruce Wayne say like Barry Allen was here and I saw like a vision of the future. He actually acknowledged that. In the 2017 version, they just forgot about it, and I'm like, well, there was no payoff for that. What? But then we also got to see that nightmare scene at the very end, which was very cool. I thought that whole scene between Jared Leto and Batman and all that thing was very cool interaction, and I think it was probably better than anything we saw in Suicide Squad from Jared Leto's Joker.
Yes.
But I thought that was a very cool scene. It was cool to see who's alive and who's not. But then also that ending scene, the ending part where Superman, comes down and you're like, oh frick, he's gonna kill him or something. So I thought all that was cool, and I really want to see more of that. They basically just put that out there as like a tease, like this is what we could see if we make another Justice League movie, we could see what happens. So and also what we got to see was there was a little like I saw Cyborg.
Yeah, it was mind blowing that. Like, do you remember back at SnyderCon when Zack Snyder talked about his plans for Justice League 2?
Yeah. And
he said, Darkseid boom tooms in the Batcave and kills Lois. And then when we get to Cyborg's glimpse of the Night of the Future, we see that Darkseid and Superman are in the Batcave. I know if you noticed that, but you see the Robin suit in the background. So like that was in the Batcave. So that's if this is in the movie, then it's a confirmation that this is what Zack Snyder is planning to do currently, because he released the storyboards some time ago, but they were an idea. That's not what they're gonna do now.
Right.
But like to see this thing that I know Zack Snyder planned to do in Justice League 2 happen in this film as a premonition of sorts, it was just so cool. And like to see like Darkseid killing Aquaman or Wonder Woman's funeral, I was like, whoa, shit, my God, shit. Like, there was so much nightmarish stuff happening at once. So like I didn't expect it to be in the scene of the Kryptonian ship.
Yeah, me neither.
Right. I was out of guard, and like so was Cyborg, and then at some point the ship said, "Now the future is rooted into the present," which was like a really ominous line. So like makes me think, shit, what's gonna happen next? Like I wonder how the ship exactly knew about the nightmare future. Maybe it was something to do with the mother box. I'm not really sure. I sure that's something that makes sense when you think about it. But when Superman was in a black suit and Darkseid was like putting his hand on his shoulder, I think that was used footage from when he killed Zod in Man of Steel, because the shot looked similar. Again, it's not a problem for me because I get what the scene is supposed to represent. Sure. So I just applied. But that nightmare sequence honestly was scary. While the nightmare sequence at the end was more awesome than it was scary, because we got to see Batman interact.
Sure.
And like, to see Batman and Joker, the DCU Batman and Joker, Ben Affleck and Jared Leto talk about the death of Robin in the nightmare future was like something that, if you told me 2 years ago that this was going to be a film, I would have said, "Oh, shut up."
Right.
Yeah. Like you said, I think the first time with the Cyborg, and not really flashback, but kind of the vision that he had, in the Superman ship was very jarring, especially because the first thing you kind of see them in the ship, and then it kind of cuts to Wonder Woman's funeral, and it's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So like you said, that was I'm not sure if scary is the right word, but it was very frightening, I guess. And then you see Superman holding the skeleton of Lois in the Batcave, and then I like you said, it doesn't really make sense, but I think that this was probably the computer side of Cyborg showing him a potential future, I guess. So it's not necessarily the ship that's showing him this image, but it's sort of like his AI, I guess is a good way to put that. Just kind of showing him the consequences of what is about to happen.
Right.
That's the way I interpret that.
Like his intelligence was running a simulation of what would happen if Superman comes back to.
Yes.
I guess it makes sense on that aspect because, I mean, if Superman stays dead, then Darkseid can't control them. So I guess on that side of things, I guess it's a bad thing they brought him back. I mean,
sure.
No, of course. But like, I guess, like Obi-Wan said, from a certain point of view, like,
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. And then the final one where they're on the road, it was not as scary, obviously, but it was more just like very much a continuation of the one. I'm not sure if this take place before or after the one in Batman versus Superman.
Before, because in the one in Batman vs Superman, Batman is captured and Superman kills him.
Okay.
So one happens earlier, or if it's still in the same timelines and the timeline didn't change, future time travel things constantly change. So if this is the same nightmare as the one before, then it takes place beforehand. But I have no for the team manages to escape Superman in that scenario. Unless Flash wants them out, but he can't pick them all at once because Snyder said that this barely has to be very careful when he picks up people.
Right.
So I have no idea how they get out of that.
I'm pretty sure. I think Zack said it takes place before because we see Batman get that Joker card from Joker, and in the Batman v Superman scene, he has the card on his gun. Right. Going off of that, so in this scene, Joker gives him the card, and he's like, "Hey, if this is like a truce, if you break the card, bad stuff's gonna happen." One thing I really liked is that Batman kind of goes into the talking about how Harley Quinn died. I thought was really interesting. One thing I didn't really like was that Joker was talking about how Robin died, which in this continuity is Dick Grayson, which I'm really salty about. But Zack Snyder did say that if there's ever a second one, he would show that scene, which I'm not totally. I mean, I want to see the next movie, but I don't want to see that. Fair enough. But
and just cover the eyes.
I'll download it and I'll just cut that scene out.
You don't want to see Dick die, no.
Right. But yeah, it was a cool scene overall. Yeah. What I thought was cool was when Batman said, like, Harley Quinn made me promise that I'll kill you slowly. And when Joker handed him the card, like, you saw like his hand was like totally shaking, which like makes it seem like he was actually freaking scared of Batman, which is funny because like he doesn't show that, which is one of the things I really like about Ben Affleck's Batman is like he really strikes fear into people. He like scares the crap out of people, which is a huge aspect of Batman that people overlook a lot. Right. But that was initially the reason he dresses the way he is, because he even said something like in the original comics, like, criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. He basically did it to scare the crap out of people. But yeah, so going forward, like, would you guys want to see like Justice League 2 and 3 or just a second one? I don't know which, but would you like to see that? And would you like to see a Batfleck Deathstroke project? Whether it's like an HBO Max series or a movie, like. Would you like to see basically what the movie teased? Would you like to see that followed through?
Well, as you can probably, absolutely, yeah. I would love to see Justice League 2 and 3 and like have the Snyder saga of Man of Steel, Batman, Superman, Justice League 1, 2, 3 completed. I would absolutely love that. So that while the MCU fans have their own Infinity Saga, I have my Superman saga. Like that really, really cool. It wants to be a dream come true, and like Snyder said, apparently there aren't conversations for a sequel right now, but he would absolutely do it if he was asked to. And Zack Snyder also said that he doesn't expect to get a sequel, but he didn't expect to get here either. So
Right.
never say never. I think he said. I know. I think he said never know, something like that. And regarding the Batfleck project, of course, I will absolutely love that. He's my favorite live action Batman and one of my favorite adaptations of the character. I like to see a whole movie or mini series would be fine. I guess maybe a mini series would be fleshed out more. Which is, I mean, he's been Batman for 20 years. There's plenty of things you can explore.
Sure.
And like, I would love the rest of the Justice League saga, Batfleck project, and possibly the a year cut of Suicide Squad. Might as well while you had it, because you get how do you say, a nice bow on things. Everyone gets to tell their own story, and everyone's happy. And like, there's this hashtag going on, Restore the Snyderverse. I'm sure you guys heard of it.
Yeah.
What they're saying is doing pretty well, but I'm kind of hesitant to post about it because I don't want to sound ungrateful.
Sure.
Because, I fought for this film for like 4 years. I started my page around 2018, and like, I just posted my first thoughts review on Justice League. That post is doing very well, and it's attracting the attention of a lot of people who said, "How dare you say it's the best movie ever? And game is better." And like, that's your opinion, man. I can do nothing.
Right.
And like, I would absolutely love to restore the Snyderverse, but at the same time, I'm so grateful for the amazing film we just got. So for now, I just want to see things progress on their own and let everyone watch the film, since it's, and I'm sure people will have more time to watch it. And of course, I would absolutely love to see the rest of the Snyderverse, and I'm really happy with the film we just got. And it's a matter of if Zack Snyder wants to do it, great. Ben Affleck wants to do more, great. The rest wants to do more, great. If they want to, that's absolutely fine by me. But the last thing I wanted to happen is them wanting a thing they don't want to do.
Of course,
Because do you remember the Justice League reshoots? How every looked dead inside during the reshoots. I don't want to see that again, because it was honestly painful to see. And like, I want things to be genuine. I want to see genuine art made with passion. And so far, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, and most DC movies were that. So, I just wish that the people behind the films, they're still people. I want them to be happy. I want them to do what they want to do. And of course, I would love to see the story continue. But at the same time, right now, I'm happy with the film we got, and I'm enjoying that. And if we get more, great.
Yeah, fair enough.
I already shared my thoughts on the Nightmare timeline, but as far as the Legion of Doom tease at the end of the movie, I'm interested to see that. I think we talked about this on the podcast, but I think that you said there was going to be like a Dr. Poison and the Riddler as part of that group as well. That
they've
really cool.
they've kind of changed that. I don't think they'd have Riddler at that point, but that was like the leaked storyboards that they've changed like so much already. But I'm guessing they would follow something similar but different.
Right. So they'd probably introduce they probably have characters that were already introduced at this point. So maybe Ocean Master would show up, or whoever's the bad guy in the Flash. I'm not sure.
From what I understand, Black Manta was also in the original plan. And
yes.
They could use Black Manta and Ocean Master. Technically, they are available, so they could use them. But I would be lying if I said I didn't want to see the Justice League versus the Legion of Doom in a movie. A drink of you get. I would love if they managed to get Reverse Flash in the team, so that they can fight Flash. Because I would be happy with Captain. Of course, I would be. But Reverse Flash is such an iconic villain of Barry Allen, especially. And I wonder what if you guys were in charge of the DCU, how would you form your Legion of Doom? Which characters would you put?
I would probably the tough question. I liked Dr. Poison, so I want to include her if I could. I mean, obviously that was like a long time. There's a huge time gap between movies, so that might not make sense. But I'd want her. I'm not sure, because like, who would be the cyborg villain? you know.
Right. Yeah.
Do you guys know about Grid?
Oh yeah.
Creed.
From
Grid.
Injustice, he's basically like a cyborg without the humanity. He's like
Yeah.
100% robot,
Oh,
kind of like the Terminator, and like appeared in the comics and Injustice 2 as a premiere skin. I feel like that would be a nice counterpart. I think Grid would be the safest bet, I guess, because
Okay.
you know, say Lex Luthor built him, and there you go, he's an evil cyborg. I don't know.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that this Lex Luthor would definitely want a member on his team that are very much to counteract the Justice League. So he'd probably want that would make sense for this character to build something like that. At least in my mind, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, I think for me, I would obviously Lex Luthor and Deathstroke are a given, and I'm totally cool with that.
Right.
Like, I would like to see Lex Luthor in like his classic suit. You know, he had like that giant kind of green and purple suit, that kind of thing. That'd be very cool to see. And I'd be very cool with Deathstroke being on there too, because I love him as a character, and I think Joe Manganiello's version looks badass as so I would love to see him in action. And then I'd be cool with Dr. Poison, I guess, or Cheetah, but I don't really care much for Cheetah as a character no matter what she's in, even in the comics.
Right.
And she kind of gave up her power in Wonder Woman 1984, so I think Dr. Poison would make more sense. And then I'd probably do Captain Cold for Barry, for the Flash, because like Reverse Flash works better as like the main villain of like a Flash film or something.
Yeah, you got a point.
Yeah.
And then I think with Aquaman, I think Black Manta would work best. Especially considering they already kind of set him up as like he wants to go after Aquaman, like at the end of Aquaman,
Right.
the movie, and I think Grid would be a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I just had a thought that maybe for the Flash you could use Captain Boomerang because he was already
true, too.
introduced.
That's true.
In the scene in Suicide Squad, he was arrested by the Flash, so he kind of has a beef, I guess you could say.
True. Yeah, I'm sure with like Lex's connections, he could probably find a way to get him out of Bell Rev or whatever. So yeah, I would definitely love to see all this stuff. I'd definitely love to see, you know, the Nightmare storyline come to fruition. I'd love to see, like in a Justice League sequel, seeing like the Legion of Doom against the Justice League, and I would really, really love to see the Batfleck, you know, Deathstroke project, because like they said they wanted to have like a scene like you see in Arkham Origins, that really cool scene where Batman and Deathstroke are fighting. That would be so amazing to see in live action, especially with those versions of the characters. And the cool thing with DC, the thing that stands out for Marvel is that they are doing like a multiverse thing where like they have so many different versions of the characters, like the shows, the movies, even different movies. Like there's Batfleck, but then there's also Robert Pattinson's Batman. So I think that's kind of a unique thing that DC's doing, and I think they really can explore what Zack Snyder was building while also building other projects. And I would definitely like to see that in the future. But at this point, you know, I'm just happy the movie came out, and I hope it happens organically. Like this movie is so successful that it makes Warner Brothers want to pursue this, and then Zack's on board, everybody else is on board, you know.
Right.
I would like back to the Deathstroke bit you mentioned. I would like to mention that, you know, when the Zack Snyder Justice League ended and like Lex Luthor revealed the Bruce Wayne's identity to Luke, I like that scene was supposed to carry over to Ben Affleck's Batman project,
right?
Because I'm sure you guys. The original plan was to have Deathstroke destroy Bruce Wayne's life, basically. Like, he knows his secret identity, so like he can kill anyone he loves, which I think would make for a very dark Batman film, which is saying something.
Sure, yeah.
I would absolutely love that, but at the same time, I think it would probably bring me a lot of pain because I love this Batman. So to see him suffer is not really something I'm looking forward to, especially since he was so optimistic in Zack Snyder Justice League.
Right.
To see lose all that optimism would probably be impactful, but at the same time, it's like, somebody give this guy a break, come on.
Right.
And like when Lex Luthor, because
I think
when Batman v Superman established that Lex Luthor knows everyone's secret identities, and like that's the thing he used for himself, but to share that information with Slade, I think that was such a snitch move. Like, come on.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. I think that
no limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the if they were to make a a solo Ben Affleck movie, I think that it would probably be very similar to the Judas Contract. If you're familiar with that one, it was where Deathstroke learned the secret identities of the Teen Titans, and so he goes after them like personally. So I think it would be very similar to that. And it also seems that this version of Deathstroke and Batman definitely have a history together. It was implied that that was how Slade lost his eye, but also I heard some people theorizing that this version of Batman could have also killed his son, because in the comics that was the Titans did that, and so that's why Deathstroke was mad at them. So that could have been switched around. But yeah.
Cool. So yeah, the last little thing. It's not really like, I'm probably not going to talk about it too much. I know like some people have been very much nitpicking this movie. Like when you posted something on your Instagram page, you know, people were like freaking out because you really liked it, and I did the same thing, and I got mostly negative comments, and like, you know, some people just like really nitpicky, or it was just stuff like the story didn't make sense, and like it made okay, and like there's even one guy trying to basically like somehow blame, like say that Christopher Nolan and Deborah Snyder had like a role to play in what happened with 2017's Justice League or something, trying to like blame them for stuff. I'm like, okay, but so I just got like a lot of negative comments. I'm like, okay, whatever. So there's obviously been like, the haters are still out there. Like I you know, I should have expected that, but there are definitely still people that are just gonna like nitpick the crap out of this film. And you know, if they didn't like Snyder to begin with, they're not gonna like him now.
Sure.
And like, it's not for everybody. Like one of my roommates, he like thought it was okay. It's not his cup of tea, but you know, obviously the fans love this thing. But you know, some people are complaining about, you know, the runtime, like it's too long. You know, 4 hours. Sure. But it's like, same people that say that are binge watching 5 episodes of a series in one weekend or one day. You know, so it's like, you know, it's, and movies used to be like super long like that back in the day. That's why they had like intermissions. You know, like. I think our culture is very much, you know, everything has to be like a sound bite. Everything's like, you know, like has to be like TikTok length very or whatever. Exactly. You know, which is like nothing inherently wrong with that. But when you expect everything to be like that, that's not healthy, you know? So I think, you know, sometimes things just take a long time to flush out properly. And a 4 hour movie is fine, especially considering it's technically a director's cut. Because like, if you look at Lord of the Rings, they're all 3 of them are very close to 4 hours. And Return of the King is like 4 hours and almost 20 minutes. So, you know, there have always been movies this long, you know, complaining about that's just kind of a weak argument, you know, especially considering how much was done for this movie and how much it covered. It didn't feel like it was unnecessarily long. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Did you guys have any last thoughts?
I mean, concerning the runtime, I wasn't able to watch it on one sitting.
Sure.
So it kind of took me all day. I saw like 90 minutes and then like an hour or two, and then I finished it off later in the day. I couldn't sit through the whole thing at once.
Sure.
But, you know, that's not necessarily the film's fault.
Yeah, and
I just couldn't sit down for 4 hours.
Right. And what I thought was cool too is he separated it into chapters.
Yes.
So it was easier to like, you know, it was easier to watch it in like episodic form if you wanted to, or in, you know, multiple sittings, which is like,
One thing I like to touch upon is like the most because you know, Man of Steel, Batman and Superman have a lot of criticism around them.
Oh yeah, very divisive.
You both heard 1,000 times like Superman destroyed the city. He did not. Batman stopped killing because his mom shared the same name. No, he did not. That's not it. So like, I'm so used to defend things just overblown statements, hyperboles, and so on and so forth, that I was totally ready for this film to receive the same treatment. Instead, it's getting mostly positive reviews, which are a relief. But like the 2 most consistent criticism I've seen so far are about 2 things. One, Wonder Woman killing the terrorist at the beginning of the film, and
it's like, oh no, she killed a terrorist.
Kids, that's pretty unforgivable for me.
Yeah.
Not to mention they ready to blow up like 4 squares, I think. Like she had 10 seconds to act. She didn't really have time to be careful. Like, and the second I complained about the most, about leaving aside the runtime, it's about the fact that Darkseid forgot where the anti-life location was. That's about the question. I've been seeing a lot of messages about this because like, oh, I didn't understand this. Did Darkseid just forget? And I was like, I mean, it's been 1,000 years. If you forget 1,000 things every day, I guess you forgot about. I don't know. And like that's a thing I can't understand. I can't really explain.
Yeah.
But it's not really a super big thing. But I do feel like that's weird that he forgot about that. And yeah.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag because it's weird that he forgot because Earth was the only world that has been able to fight him off. But then again, Zack said this too. He was very young when they attacked Earth. He's supposed to be like quote unquote baby Darkseid. So, they made it seem like it was, at least a few thousand years ago. So he has been conquering like thousands of worlds since then. So like on the one hand, you'd think he would remember like some sort of, the one planet that beat him. On the other hand, he was a little kid and like technically, in their standards, he was a little kid and he got like his ass handed to him. And at this point, he's been building his empire for thousands of years. I guess he just didn't quite remember. Well, that's another thing too. They didn't really want to come back for the boxes because they didn't want to get their asses kicked again. And they probably just like put it on the back burner. And then obviously there was Superman and stuff, but that's the thing, like Superman's death really brought the boxes back to life and they're like, oh shoot, that's right, there's these boxes that are here and like we basically have free reign to come now because like freaking Superman's dead. There's nobody here to stop us, So it was a mixed bag. On the one hand, like some of it makes sense, some of it is you could nitpick it and it makes a little bit like not a whole lot of sense, but I'm just like who the hell cares? Like there's plot holes like this in almost every movie,
Right. Nothing's perfect.
Yeah. But that was our spoiler-free, or not spoiler-free, our spoiler-heavy review / spoiler talk, whatever. Thanks so much for joining us, Alessandro. It was really awesome to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, awesome. And just everybody remember to follow Alessandro on his Instagram, hawkofkrypton. The link for that is in the description. And be sure to follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook group. And check out our new podcast. We've got a new episode talking about basically all of Zack Snyder's filmography. So check that out.
Right.
And all those links are in the description. Thanks for watching and peace out.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.